Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, January 8th, 2025 meeting of the Oldsmar Planning Board. If you care to join me in the pledge, please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Working on my PTSD over there, huh? Whew. All right. The Citizens Open Forum is now open. Anyone wishing to speak on any item not on the agenda, please join us at the podium. You have 5 minutes to speak. Name and address. Seeing no one, I close the open forum. Swearing in, anyone speaking tonight at public hearing, please rise to be sworn in by the clerk. We have a fan. So, first item on tonight's agenda is approve the minutes dated December 11th. I seek a motion for approval.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes of the December 11th Planning Board for the City of Oldsmar as presented.
Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Any discussion? No? All in favor? Signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Vote carries. Approved. Number 2, consider excused absence December 11th meeting for Bob Harvey and Ross Roundhouse. Seek a motion for the excuse absence.
I make a motion that we excuse the absences of Bob Harvey and Ross Roundhouse.
Thank you. A second, please.
Second.
Any discussion? I have a note. Ginny, please. The alternates, I believe, are held to the same rules as the regular members on attendance. I was just reviewing the code, and it doesn't really say that. It says the 3 day of the absences, but it doesn't designate a member of the planning board missing 3. Well, alternates are members, aren't they? Well, this is the original code, and it hasn't been changed, so I'm going by the rule here. Well, the policy isn't in the code yet, so I don't know how to deal with that. But, that being said, would you please include them, since they're not here, on the next agenda saying excused absences of Joe and,
Jessica.
what's her name?
Jessica.
Jessica. Could you do that, please? Thank you. All in favor of, wait, did we?
We've got a first and a second.
We got a first, second. All in favor, say aye. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay, motion passes. Thank you very much. So, that's old business. Item number 3, case CA 2408, City of Oldsmar Land Code Development, amendment to section 6.411, Article 6. This is a public hearing. Hi, Tatiana. Merry Christmas and
Hello, Happy New Year. Tatiana Childress, City of Oldsmar Planning and Redevelopment Director. So this is CA case 2408, text amendment to the City of Oldsmar Land Development Code. And I'll start with a quick brief background on this, so why we have this floodplain amendment. So these are amendments to our floodplain regulations. The Article 6, Flood Control, Stormwater Management, and Wetland Protection of Part 3 of the Land Development Code. The National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, was established by Congress in 1968 to address the protection of communities from flood damage through floodplain management and to provide businesses and residents the opportunity to purchase flood insurance coverage. The NFIP was established to reduce the financial risk associated with the flooding for property owners, and renters through insurance. In return, participating communities must adopt floodplain management regulations that meet or exceed the minimum requirements of the NFIP to reduce future flood damage. The city of Oldsmar joined this program as a participant in 1971 and is referred to as a participating community, which means that Oldsmar is a community for which the Department of Homeland Security's Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is FEMA, has authorized the sale of flood insurance under the NFIP. We have a request today, so this is a text amendment to substantial improvement, which I refer to as SI, definitions of the section 6.14.1 of Article 6, flood control, stormwater management, and wetland protection of Part 3 of the Land Development Code of the City of Oldsmar. And this amendment proposes to exclude the following items from the definitions of the SI, from the substantial improvement definitions. So again, these are exclusions. So costs for repair for the express purpose of repairing wind or flood damage to pre-damage conditions of like kind and quality may be excluded from the purposes of evaluating repairs and improvements in the prior 5-year period, which is a cumulative, provided the structure is not substantially damaged and the cost of repairing wind or flood damage do not exceed the 49% of the market value of the structure before the damage occurred. The Land Development Code, the text amendment request was reviewed against the 3 conditions outlined in Section 3.13.2 of the Land Development Code. This amendment complies with the comprehensive plan and advances the purpose of the Land Development Code by promoting the public health, safety, and welfare through orderly development, by excluding repair costs for restoring wind and flood damage to pre-damage conditions from the substantial improvement, our 5-year cumulative calculation. The amendment ensures fairness for property owners, and it applies only to non-substantially damaged structures where repair cost remains below the 49% of the structure's pre-damaged market value. The amendment will contribute to promote the community welfare. This amendment will allow the property owners to restore wind or flood damaged structures to pre-damaged condition without being penalized under the substantial improvement, provided that the property is not substantially damaged and the cost to repair is below the 49% of the market value of the structure. By excluding these repair costs from the 5-year cumulative, this amendment will balance the need for timely disaster recovery with the goal of the floodplain management. And this amendment will not grant a special privilege to an individual property owner. The amendment will, the code amendment will be applied uniformly for the structures within the special flood hazard area. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt an ordinance to amend the definitions of substantial improvement in Section 6.14.1 of the Article 6, flood control, stormwater management, and wetland protection of Part 3 of the Land Development Code of the City of Oldsmar. And we submit the staff report into record for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the board have any questions for staff? Senator Lynette?
I have one question, and it's the title in agenda item number 3 has section 6.4.11, but the staff report has section 6.14.1. So I don't know if it's .1 or .11.
Let me check. I have to bring the Land Development Code online to check, to double check. We can double check and verify that information. So the title, the title should be correct though. So it's the Article 6, flood control, stormwater management, and wetland protection. So the section that would be under the section of the definitions. I don't have the full ordinance printed in here, but again, I can go to, the, anybody can go to, if you Google City of Oldsmar Land Development Code and just type section 6.14.4, it should come up, so.
And Lynette, note that in the requested action, it has the dot one.
Just one.
So this dot 11 up here might be a typo.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. And
But Tatiana can verify that
I
by
can
looking up
verify
the
that,
code.
yes, and we can update this for the council hearings, so thank you for pointing that out.
That's my only question.
Thank you.
Brenna?
This is just for the wetlands area, correct?
So this is for any properties within the special flood hazard area, so it's anywhere within the flood zone that we call it, so, but
It's
it's,
everywhere.
the technical word is special flood hazard area, so that's where FEMA established their contours for the flood maps.
Okay, thank you.
Bob?
This may not really
He's not.
be important, but
Push your button, Bob. Push the button. Red dot. There you go.
this may not be important, but
Thanks.
the wording says, express purpose of repairing wind or flood damage to pre-damage condition of like kind and quality. What if you got something that is damaged, or something's been damaged, and you can't rebuild, you can't repair it to like kind or quality because codes have changed? So,
So it has to meet the current codes, but if we're talking about kitchen cabinets from 1960s, so that's a like kind and quality of today's materials. We understand that some of those materials cannot be reproduced anymore. However, it's like kind quality, so I don't have a good answer on that.
so
The
even though,
codes, it will have to meet the current code, the Florida Building Code, as far as the construction goes, but as far as the material itself,
Yeah,
again, if these are the cabinets manufactured, we had this question asked, if these are the cabinets, kitchen cabinets from 1960s, they don't make them anymore, so how do I replace with like kind of, so it's whatever material is the closest to that of 1960s
okay,
cabinets.
all right. The reason I'm asking that, obviously, I've got a personal, I lost my pool cage. And it does not come even, it's 40 years old, so it doesn't even come close to codes today.
So the pool cages, they will be actually excluded. So it's anything with the structure, unless your pool cage is all structurally attached to your home, but they will not be in that same bucket of items.
Would you mind seeing that again? I didn't
So
catch.
the pool cage, typically your swimming pool, because it's independent structure, it will not be subject to the flood control regulations. We're talking about interior. So if you think about your home and anything, if you flip it around and you shake it, and anything that stays in your structure in your house that doesn't fall out, that's the, what we're
Okay, thank you, I got you.
like kind materials.
Mr. Sock? You done, Bob?
No, I'm sorry.
So, if recommending to exclude from the definition of substantial improvement, that's going to be removing this language, is that correct?
Excluding from the substantial improvement for cumulative. So the cumulative will allow to still cumulatively gather all the permits within the 5-year period, allowing us to exclude from the substantial improvement these repairs associated with just damage repair due to hurricane, flooding, or wind. So excluding is the key word there, and we had this conversation with the Florida Department of Emergency Management representative. We wanted to have the word exempt in there, but it's actually excluding them, is the word.
And to answer sort of the cumulative questions that have been asked here, Randy Moore, I'm with Tom Trask, the city attorney's office.
Thank you.
The provision at issue is 6.14.1 in terms of the enumeration, and I'm looking at the city code. And I think understanding your question a little more directly, sir, it's subtraction by addition in terms of language, right? They're adding, the ordinance is adding this language in sub 5, and by adding this language, they are excluding that, any kind of wind mitigation or water mitigation. So if you replace your windows, for example, this year and put in hurricane impact windows or, that should not count to your substantial improvement calculus. That's what it's trying to do.
Thank you. Understand.
Subtraction by deletion, I like that, thank you.
Caldwell?
Oh, no questions.
Okay. This is, you say in a timely manner. Now, we had back-to-back storms, right? And people probably didn't get their stuff fixed in time for the next storm. So I don't know if that has any bearing on this, because the way we're reading this modification of the language doesn't really say you got to get it done by a certain time. Is there such a thing as a certain time to complete substantial back to pre-damaged condition? Because it's pre-damaged was storm 1, right, or damaged, and then you got storm 2.
So typically, there will be an event. In this instance, we had an event, 2 events, back-to-back events. So your damage associated with flooding or wind will be tied to that particular event. In this instance, we deploy a substantial damage team right after we have hurricane damage, and we go and do the windshield assessment, and then Pinellas County inspectors, they do more detailed assessments, so those assessments are still in place as of today. So these particular repairs that we're talking about, they will be tied to that particular event. And it's either wind or flood again. And there might be 2 events. So in this instance, your question is sort of kind of like, I don't know how to answer when these are back-to-back events, but I guess if it's one was flood, the other one was wind, maybe both. Pre-damaged condition here, repairing it to pre-damaged condition, a lot of homeowners are coming back with, say, appraisals that are post-damage. So they're making the appraisals right now. So what we need to see for this evaluation, your pre-damage condition of your house, how it might be even like family photos, but we need to see the flooring, the kitchen cabinets, anything that was there pre-event, pre-storm, and you will be restoring it to that, pre-storm condition. I don't know if I answered that.
Wow, take pictures and have them notarized almost.
That's right.
Ouch. All right.
Date stamp them if possible. If you have a camera with a date stamp, that usually helps, yes, later on.
Yeah, they say to take videos and put on a CD, for.
Hopefully it will not float, yes, the CD.
All right, no more questions of staff, so we'll open the public hearing. Those wishing to be heard, state their name and address, and you have 5 minutes to speak. Please join us at the podium. You didn't swear in if you're speaking for or against this item. Please join us at the podium.
Hi.
We got you covered.
Excuse me, I don't have a voice. Not sick, allergies. Deanna Shepherd, 400 Country Club Drive, Oldsmar. I think there are currently 6 or 7 houses on my street for sale, as is.
How many? Can
6 or
you get a
7.
little closer to the mic?
I think there are 6 or 7 houses
Oh.
on my street for sale, as is currently. 400 Country Club Drive is my address. Tatiana told me about this meeting tonight, so I just planned to listen, but I had a question on your slides. On the first slide, it mentions the word prior, and I just wanted to see that again and how it ties in, because I think it was talking about prior, the 49% rule and the substantial improvements and the cumulative prior to. And I want to make sure that whatever repairs we do to our homes, you're saying that percentage will be excluded for the 5-year cumulative moving forward. So the next people who purchase our homes, if they need to do a repair or if they want to do an improvement, this money that I would be spending now will not be part of their future repairs or improvements percentage that they're allowed.
Good question.
Because it said prior, so I'm thinking back and not forward. And it really does impact our ability to sell our homes to anyone, to see how much that they're allowed still, if they need to, if they want to make a change to my house, if another storm comes through. and the smallest thing needs to be repaired. You know, people need to know that. So I'm in the position right now, my house is gutted. It's just been sitting. I've been living elsewhere, paying for 2 houses. And I'm considering putting it on the market. So this is important to me. That's why I'm here tonight. Thank you. If you could answer that one question.
So any future repairs, if this ordinance passes due to flood or wind damage, they will not be subject to the cumulative. So we'll look, as long as they're under 49%. So we will look at just the cost of the project to repair against your market value from the private appraisal or from Pinellas County property appraiser. And that will be compared against that. So the ordinance, this ordinance, particular ordinance, to take advantage of this event, it will be, we verified with our legal, and it will be at the time of permit issuance. So today, if you had prior cumulative, so this ordinance will go in effect, and then you can get your permit, and then it will not be counted. Then the cost of repair to your pre-damage condition will not be counted towards the cumulative. Any future events, hopefully this passes, this will not be the subject. They would not be subject to it.
So you will have a record of this information for the next potential current owner? If she
Correct.
doesn't
It will be
sell.
in the record, so we keep cumulative tally in our spreadsheet. However, these are not subject to that 5-year accumulation. So the
Right.
permit record is still there. You can still see if we get audited by FEMA, so we can still demonstrate that the cost to repair this particular home was under 49%, so based on the record data.
Well, and she's protected as a potential seller.
The future buyer will be.
So will the,
The seller only needs to disclose that the property was flooded, so the future seller is the one who will be benefiting from this, correct?
thank you. So does anyone wish, you spoke neither in favor nor opposed. Have we received any written comments, Jenny? None received. Do you have any closing statements, Tatiana, since you're the kind of the applicant? No? All right, I will close the public hearing. I seek a motion on case number CA 2408.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recommend approval to City Council for case CA 24-08.
Thank you. A second?
I second that motion.
Any discussion from the board further? None noted. A roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you very much. Item 4, case CA 2409, City of Oldsmar Land Development Code Amendment to Section 6.11 again. Yeah, it is 1-1 on both. Related to requests for variances and appeals. This is a public hearing. Tatiana, you have the floor.
Thank you. So this is CA 2409. This is just another text amendment. And this text amendment, a little bit of a background again for this one. So currently, all requests for appeals and variances from the standards of the Land Development Code in Section 6.11, which is flood control, stormwater management, and wetland protection, must be heard and decided by Variance Review Board. Our Land Development Code states that Variance Review Board shall hear and decide appeals when it is alleged there is an error in any requirement, decision, or determination made by the floodplain administrator in the administration and enforcement of Article 6. So basically, if there is an appeal to the decision that is made by the floodplain administrator or the building official, then a homeowner or their representative, they could request this to be heard in front of the variance board. What we're proposing is to change it to the magistrate, special magistrate. So the request for an amendment to Section 6.11, variances and appeals of Article 6, flood control, stormwater management, and wetland protection of the Land Development Code of the City of Oldsmar, to designate a special magistrate in lieu of variance review board to hear and decide on requests for appeals and requests for variances from the strict application of Article 6. And again, this text amendment was reviewed against the three conditions outlined in Section 3.13.2 of the Land Development Code. This amendment complies with the comprehensive plan and advances the purpose of the Land Development Code. The proposed text amendment complies. The special magistrate, as opposed to a variance review board, are often legal professionals with experience in land use law, making them well suited to handle appeals and variance requests. The amendment promotes community welfare by providing a more efficient, streamlined process by which property owners may receive expedited decisions on their appeals. And this amendment will not grant a special privilege to an individual property owner, as the code amendment will be applied uniformly within the special flood hazard area. With that, staff recommends that the City Council adopts an ordinance to amend Section 6.11, variances and appeals of Article 6, flood control, stormwater management, and wetland protection of the Land Development Code of the City of Oldsmar, to designate a special magistrate instead of the variance review board to hear and decide on requests for appeals and requests for variances from the strict application of Article 6. And we're submitting our staff report into record, please.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of staff?
I have several. Sorry.
You're good.
So I have not heard of the variance review board. Is that board made up of volunteers or is it city employees?
So in our land development code, city council can designate a board. So we have planning board and we have also a zoning board, or we call it a board of adjustments. So they could designate the board of adjustment as the special variance, or it could be comprised of other members, I believe, of the board. There will be a decision. So if under normal circumstances, the council again will designate that board. And originally we were planning to designate the Board of Adjustment board. However, then Pinellas County switched to a special magistrate and we followed sort of kind of like their steps. So we're doing this to do what Pinellas County is doing.
Okay. So then my next question is, do we know what the cost would be involved in hiring a special magistrate if we're going from volunteer to?
Yeah, so there will be a cost, and council will have to approve the cost. I know that Pinellas County is putting $300 per hour. That's the rate, the standard legal rate, I guess, to conduct these services.
Okay. And then have we researched a special magistrate, a specific law firm? Would we want to use the same magistrate every time so they become familiar with our rules?
So we have draft procedures that we initiated following sort of kind of like Pinellas County procedures again. So they've already finalized. You can refer to Pinellas County procedures for special magistrate cases. Their clerk of the court is conducting all of this, so there will be qualifying firms. So there will be a questionnaire for qualifying firms to be able to meet the certain criteria and not to exceed the certain rate. And then there will be also special SOPs, kind of like standard operating procedures, by which they will have to review each case and provide the timeline for the review, and then special kind of like a court case, almost like a hearing for each case.
It may be that you get one law firm or a like wheelhouse, if you will, of 3 or 4 law firms that qualify and based on availability, conflicts otherwise, but it would be people who you would have the same small approved group doing this task, not ad hoc. Let's find somebody each time one comes up.
Okay.
And we'll have those procedures available for the council, so they will not be in the ordinance format. There will be more in the resolution or an agreement, and those are usually attached to the agenda item at the council. You could also request them from the city clerk when they become available, and we can distribute them. Even when Kristen has that packet, she can just share it with the board members if you're interested in that.
Okay. And then my final question is, do you know how many of these requests we have a year? Like, is it, we get 100 of them, so this is going to become very expensive, or is it like, a dozen, so it's,
So this particular is tied to the substantial damage evaluation or reevaluation that we have in place due to these two storm events. The majority of people will be reevaluated through Pinellas County Building Division, and then only the ones that are reevaluated, they're still not happy with the decision, only those will go through this special appeal, special magistrate. So I'm not sure how many of those we'll have. Maybe a few, but I'm not expecting like 100 of them to go through this appeal. So, based on the data that we have right now for substantially damaged properties.
okay, so this isn't something you get a couple times a month. This is a rarity.
In this instance, yes. Again, this is in place or is proposed to be in place due to this event. And again, Pinellas County, they already have the standard procedures outlined, like what the criteria will be, and we're following what they are doing because Pinellas County is our building official. They are doing our reassessments right now, so the third step would be the appeal in this instance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to make it very clear, again, Randy Morris, City Attorney's Office, the variances here that are contemplated are variances from the floodplain ordinance, not the kind of variance for, I want to build my house 3 feet taller than the restrictions, or I want to go closer to the side setbacks. This is about a variance from the floodplain ordinance, and so when you're asking about like, what kind of data sets do we have, up until Helene, there were 0 data points that warrant, no applications and 0 data points that warranted it. So
Okay.
it's all, this is more reactionary than like proactive, let's get ahead of whenever this comes down the pike.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and typically on that note, so for floodplain administration variances, we were not issuing any variances, so, or we would not be supportive of any variances. That was kind of like the procedures and sort of kind of like the goals. It's in place there, but it's not recommended, so it's very complicated. So it's not just your, again, the zoning variance or the height variance. So these are variances to floodplain regulations and possibly federal regulations that you would be requesting. So
It's not my turn, but can you provide an example of what you just described while it's fresh in our minds?
Sure.
type of
So, for
variance?
instance, there are certain items that are required by FEMA. So we have new flood maps, and you will be required to build your home to the elevation, say 14 above BFE. I'm sorry, above the sea level. So the BFE 14. So somebody comes in here and says, "Well, this is unreasonable. I want to build my house to, on the ground." So. There are two things here. So one is the Florida Building Code that would still require you to have BFE +1, and then you also have FEMA. So FEMA requires you, since we adopted those maps, they require you to adhere to the new maps. So you can't build to the existing elevation 9. So you would have to build your home to the new standards of, say, 14. Somebody could question this and say, well, I don't want to do this. I want to appeal this, so I would like to go through the variance. So we would probably deny that variance because, we try to be fair to everybody, and everybody needs to adhere to the new floodplain regulations, but that would be one of the examples that I can provide. So.
Excellent, thank you very much. But you just shocked me with that number 14. When did it go from 13 to 14? What did I miss? Where was I? I'm on this board. Not another foot. Okay, your turn, I'm sorry.
I have no questions.
Thank you, Bob, you got anything?
As I understand, let me use an example. We just went through a couple of months ago, the sheds that were, had a setback from the house. Okay, so if you want to put a shed within that, what was it, 5 feet? I think it was 5 feet, like from the fence.
That would be a zoning requirement, local zoning ordinance, yes, so that would not be the floodplain ordinance, unless you wanted to put it in the floodway.
That was where I wanted to put it. That's what I was saying.
The drainage easement is still a local, so it's still recorded here unless it's a designated drainage, like a floodway on the FEMA map.
Okay.
That would be the floodplain control.
So then
Variance.
it would go before the special magistrate, which, by the way, I think this is a very good idea. But what if you wanted to, variance, what if you wanted to put one closer to the house than the 5 feet, but it's not in a floodplain? Does it go before this special magistrate, or goes
Just the
before
regular zoning variance, yes, that's our Board of Adjustment
Board of
variance
Adjustment?
process.
Okay,
Yes.
that's my only question. Thank you.
Stephen?
Were there any issues with using a variance review board? Prior?
We never used it before
Never used it before.
that I've been here, so.
And was it, my understanding correct that that was a volunteer board, or that would be a volunteer board?
By current code, would be comprised of volunteers, correct?
And the special magistrate is going to cost the city
A
money?
law firm, yes.
Okay, no further questions.
So this law firm that will be retained by the city, are they going to be on a retainer, or is it someone that's going to be purchased
They will
as
have
needed?
to enter into the contract agreement with the city, from what I understand. And the details of this will be provided at the council. So there will be a resolution. So first, the text amendment needs to be in place for the ordinance. So once the ordinance is recorded at the second hearing, then we'll have a resolution, I guess, that will allow the council to enter into the agreement with the law firm.
Okay.
And what's contemplated here, at least at present, is an hourly arrangement, not retainer. And to the point of the question on, volunteer versus attorney, why not keep what we've had or have not used? The particular concern here is you're dealing with very nuanced issues of federal regulation, state regulation, local ordinances as it relates to substantial damage, substantial improvement. There are people who do this every day and still have to pour into it, and putting volunteers in the position of having to sort that and make an informed decision that's going to affect substantial rights and maybe appealed further. The concern here was getting a more informed analysis for the applicants.
That was the reason I'm in favor of it, is because you have someone who's knowledgeable instead of someone like us who's, here, you read this.
And as another matter, when you have volunteer boards, there's also the concern for the volunteers, and it makes it unpleasant where you've got people before you who you may know what the result needs to be, but they're your neighbor.
might
They're
be
your
conflict.
fellow parishioner or something of that sort, and this
A lot of
takes
conflict,
that
yeah.
out, so you get a more impartial adjudicator, if you will.
We know we can be sued.
Politics are everywhere.
If this is such a rare occurrence, though, that we haven't even used a volunteer review board before, isn't there another option to use the city attorney?
No, the city attorney cannot do this work. You're getting, the city attorney would be facilitating and representing staff at the meeting, so our office could not simultaneously advocate for and resolve the result of. So we would be, either prosecuting, opposing, however you want to phrase it, and so it has to go before that.
Where would you obtain members of a variance review board in-house? How would you do that?
As we mentioned, currently we have the zoning, our Board of Adjustment board. So originally, we were planning to designate
Right.
that board.
But as per, what was your name again?
Handsome. No, it's Randy.
Andy? The lawyer. What Randy said, though, is you don't have that that qualification of experience and knowledge. But you sell us on these items and teach us and show us what's right with or wrong with these ordinances, and we have to make informed decisions by what you deliver to us. And that being said, so would the Variance Review Board have to obtain that same information from whoever is presenting it to them. Now, would they be picked? They could be picked from any number of citizens, right? To create this board? Or, I mean, I know you've got a group. I was wondering how the Board of Adjustment feels about getting,
So they're a little bit
Dumped.
trained. So a lot of those zoning cases, they're already Randy might elaborate on this. They're quasi judicial, so they're based on facts. And any of these appeals, they will be based on facts. They're kind of like going to be like your court cases, or if you watched any of our Board of Adjustment, code enforcement meetings. So they're slightly different from this discussion level recommendation. So they are, again, fact based. So, and this is one of the reasons why we're trying to get an expert. As a special magistrate, yes.
I think you could draw
There's
from code enforcement and the Board of Adjustment and get it for free, because $300 an hour. I mean, aren't we already spending a lot of money on lawyers?
Not
That
enough,
being
sir.
said, that being said, I don't have any further questions of staff. Does anyone wish to speak? Wait a minute, I gotta open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on this item? Please join us at the podium. Are you in favor or opposition of this item? Because that's kind of a question I have to ask.
I wanted to ask if I could ask one more question about the previous item, or if that's.
I'm sorry, now, we got to
Okay,
finish this
That's fine,
up.
I'll ask Tatiana later. Thank
Maybe
you.
we can come back to you. Okay, so no one to speak in favor, no one to speak opposed. Any written comments? None received. No closing statements, Tatiana? Thank you very much. I will close the public hearing. I seek a motion on this item.
Motion to approve.
What are we approving, sir?
Now,
Yeah, you got to read it.
case number CA 24-09, City of Oldsmar Land Development Code Amendment of Section 6.11, Article 6, related to requests for variances and appeals.
Thank you.
That's out.
Recommend approval?
Pardon me?
Recommend approval versus approve?
Recommend approval.
I recommend approval.
Thank you. Thank you. I seek a second.
Second?
Any discussion from staff? Any further discussion? No, good questions, everyone. I was delightful. Roll call, please.
Board Member Kirby?
Yes?
Board Member Giannakis?
Yes.
Board Member Stock?
No.
Board Member Caldwell?
Yes.
Vice Chair Harvey?
Yes.
Chair Rainbier?
Yes.
Thank you. Passes 5-1.
All right, very good. So that ends that. So if the board is acceptable to her returning to the podium and asking a question,
Sure. Sure.
come on up. We're all in favor of it.
Thank you. I don't even know if this is a question for you, but I did meet with Tatiana and Mandy in the past, and I've had several conversations on the topic, and I don't seem to be able to get an answer that I understand. With the substantial improvement allowance, the 49% rule, one of the things that I'm being penalized for is a new roof that I put on my home in December of 2022. At the time, for whatever reason, Pinellas County valued my home at $109,000. So the $16,000 roof that I paid for out of pocket penalized me approximately $30,000 in the amount of money that I'm allowed to spend to rebuild my house. It cost about $30,000. It was about 15%, which equated to $30,000 of a penalty for a $16,000 roof. And I don't know if y'all are the correct people to talk to about that, but it doesn't seem logical. It certainly doesn't seem fair. And especially something like a roof, which is strengthening your structure and everyone, you know, it's not something that's just for looks or for fun. It's to improve the property for anyone who purchases it moving forward. So I'm trying to understand that still, and I don't know who to talk to.
Definitely isn't me. And if
Not
Tatiana
the-
can help you, because she knows the rules better than anybody.
She knows, certainly Tatiana is brilliant and knows all of the rules, but still
And
no
it's Pinellas
one.
County doing this, right?
Well, no one can explain to me how a $16,000 roof in December 2022 can cost me $30,000 allowance. And it's a matter of percentages over a 2-year period, but it doesn't seem logical.
I think you need to address the Pinellas County Commission.
I've talked to Pinellas County, and they turned me back around to Oldsmar, who turns me back around to Pinellas County.
Oh, well, I'm not putting you in a loop, so. Anybody got any ideas? I don't know where, it's not in our wheelhouse, so.
Okay. You've explained it to me mathematically, but not logically. So if that makes any sense.
FEMA, for substantial improvement for the cumulative, this roof is one of the items that we have to count towards that 5-year cumulative, so it is considered to be an improvement.
Yeah,
Although
that was
certain items in that roof, so if you put in some hurricane straps or if you add in some protection, so they could be excluded from the cost. But today, that item in the bulletin, in the FEMA, book, so I guess if you wanted to make a change, you would have to go higher. So what is it, the U.S. Congress that you would have to bring the decision to? Remove the roofs possibly, but it's Oldsmar's decision to have the 5-year cumulative for now. And the cumulative is there to, you don't change roofs every year, so the cumulative is there and you don't change roof 5-year. So the roofs are there just kind of like a maintenance item every 15 years or so. And the 5-year cumulative is really to prevent phasing and to prevent this lateral additions, garage conversions, and anything else that you will be improving and then maybe flipping your home to sell it. So, and we are addressing the other issue with repair to the flood or wind with these ordinance, the prior ordinance case. So this will not be.
Well,
Hopefully.
where's the discrepancy in the $15,000 roof versus the $30,000 penalty? I mean, how do they double that money?
2021 data from Pinellas County Property Appraiser, they probably used the 2020 data. So, and we use percentages. We're in 2025, so 5 years ago, because we're linking this to the percentages of the home, your repair cost to the percentage of your market value of the house. Since the market value of the house was in 2025 in 2021 much lower, that's where the 30% kind of like, or 30,000.
Personally, I would advise that the discussion we're having at this point is beyond the jurisdiction of this board.
There is.
And not something that any of you members are in a position to resolve or provide clarity. And I say that with all respect to the very treacherous and frustrating and discouraging process that you've been through, ma'am. I acknowledge that, and we see that, but the board's not in a position to resolve it. And I understand you've had prior exchanges with staff on the issue, but the public hearing isn't necessarily the most suitable platform to provide that clarity.
That's why I asked the question. Thank you.
And we're welcome to listen to anybody because that's the kind of board we are. Thank you, Tatiana.
Thank you for including.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, that's it for me and us. I think I seek a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion, we adjourn the planning board committee of January 8th.
Yes, don't need a second. All in favor?
Aye.